This is my friend, Oakland City Attorney John Russo. I've known him since 1991, but I'm introducing John to my national audience. Say hi, John.
Hi.
John, we're going to talk about what you've been waiting for to hear from me, because some of you have said, Zinni, what's your opinion of the debate? But rather than just give you my spiel, I'm going to talk about with John, because John this is his third term as city attorney. He was what, 3 terms as council member? 2 terms as council member. A massive political junkie like myself, which is in a sense how we met. So without any further ado, John, what'd you think of the debate?
Well, I think both sides did what they needed to do. They both avoided major gaffes. I think there was a lot of concern that, at least on our side of the ball, those of us who are Democrats, that Senator Biden, who tends to be gaffe-prone, might say something silly or might fall for the bait of attacking vice presidential candidate Governor Palin, thereby continuing to feed this media, not media so much fueled, but this concept that any exploration of Palin's experience is somehow de facto an expression of sexism.
Yeah.
And rather than try to deconstruct how hypocritical that is, particularly coming from the GOP, Sarah Palin certainly doesn't need any defending. She clearly can take very good care of herself. Thank you. You betcha. I think that Biden was very wise not to attack her, but to keep hammering his points regarding John McCain and the similarities between McCain and Bush, to try to puncture this maverick myth. And
which he did well.
Which I thought he did okay. I do think that there are instances where Senator Biden has been a senator for too long, and so he talks that sort of bloviated Washington talk. And let me give you an example. There was a question where he was asked by Gwen Ifill about the fact that he was in favor of intervention in the Balkans, that he was in favor of intervention now in Darfur.
Right.
He answered that first section very well. Then she gave him what I thought was a major softball that he whiffed on. And the softball was, she said, what are the conditions under which you would intervene for humanitarian reasons? And he gave...
A la Somalia.
A la Somalia. He gave an answer that I can't even remember exactly how he framed it, because it was boring. And what he could have done there was to say something on the order of, look, when most of your viewers remember a time when the United States was beloved in the world as a defender of freedom, when the United States had respect and affection, where other countries may disagree with us based on their national interests, but publics around the world loved America. And that was because we've always been a shining light of freedom, and even when there are not small, specific, parochial national interests at stake, like oil, etc., we have an obligation to uphold our brand, if you will. Right. He wouldn't have put it that way. And then he could have said, instead of what he did, which were the 2 reasons he gave in effect were, is there a genocide going on, and 2, can we be helpful? He could have just said that. He might have said, you know, the day when dictators could hide what they were doing from the view of the world is over, with the internet, with satellites. And he could have sort of ladled that into transparency and done a counterpoint with the Bush administration. Instead, he got involved in a very insider baseball kind of answer. And he did that several times. He did get better, I felt, as the debate went on. Best moment, of course, was when he got choked up over his child, which was clearly heartfelt. As opposed to most of the game show sincerity that we saw from Governor Palin, who is doing the best Wink Matindale imitation I've seen in years.
That's nauseating.
But
he means this Wink, folks.
No, you betcha. I'm waiting for the double guns. Hey.
Speaking of which,
say it ain't so, Joe.
I thought she did a crappy job. Tell me why I'm wrong.
You're wrong, because she was able to. First thing in a debate is to be able to control the ground. Just like in a
What does that mean? What does that mean?
Well, it means she answered the questions she wanted to answer. And I don't know, obviously I'm not prone to conspiracy theories, but one would begin to think that the false outrage that was being expressed about Gwen Ifill as the moderator was designed precisely to prevent her from pushing back when Palin refused flat out to answer her questions.
Wait, so you're basically saying this is amazing. This is a great point. Listen to this, folks. You're basically saying that Gwen Ifill caved.
I wouldn't say she caved. I think she probably felt hampered in her ability because of this bogus issue about whether she had a conflict, which I think, by the way, had some subtle racist undertones to
racist,
it.
I felt.
Because
wait a minute, she's only writing a book about African American politicians, of which Barack Obama happens to be one, right? I mean, I don't want to get off too off.
No,
that's my.
Well, I think the conflict, the way they framed it, the conflict, to be fair, is if Obama wins, her book will sell more, and therefore she has a conflict.
Sure.
But I think it was a subtext clearly there that, well, she's an African American. She must be for Obama.
Right. Exactly.
Okay.
Right.
I mean, it's that irrational. This. I mean, we are in. I mean, Sarah Palin is.
Which also means I guess she voted for Al Sharpton too, right?
I think that. You know, you want to go down that road. There's all kinds of stupid things we can talk about. I mean, there's no accounting for irrational ignorance.
Here's why I thought she did a lousy job, okay? Because, for precisely the same reason you gave, I feel that when a question is brought to you in a debate, it is your duty to answer the question, not pass, I'll pick that one. Because if you play this game, and I try this at home, folks. Go cover your ears when Gwen Ifill asks the question. And then uncover your ears when Sarah Palin gives the answer. And do that 5 successive times. It's almost the same answer.
No, exactly. Well, that was what they did. And here's why I thought she did very well. And here's why.
Okay.
And I do have a couple of things I do want to say about Governor Palin that I haven't heard in the media. What they did clearly was they trained her and they gave her 3 or 4 set pieces. And they said, it doesn't matter what Gwen Ifill asks you, you're going to say these things. And they rehearsed her, and she did very well with them. The other thing she did that I thought was impressive was she realized from jump that she was not playing to the audience in the room, since they could not respond anyway. So it as if it could have just as easily been in a studio. And she took the opportunity to look right into the camera. And she spoke right into the camera for the entire time. Even when she was talking to Biden, she might start once in a while so she wouldn't appear to be...
the look of a future senator, folks.
I don't think so. She would look and then come right back and say, well, you know, Joe, blah, 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 just as if right now I'm looking at you. But let's say I was talking this way, Zinni, and I'm looking right into the camera, talking to Zinni, but I'm actually talking right to these folks, because gosh darn it, shucks aren't I cute, golly gosh darn it. And that was that, plus the pushback to Ifill, so that Ifill would not be in a position to say, excuse me, but maybe you want to hear the question again.
Right.
Which is what generally happens, where they come back and say, you didn't answer the question. Let me pose it to you again, Senator or Governor. That never happened once. So she was able to get away. And therefore, since she took this unusual tack of spending the entire debate, not just the opening and closings, looking right into the camera, since she had the pushback, I'm not going to answer the questions you or the moderator want me. I'm going to answer the questions the American people want. I'm going to talk straight talk to the American people. I think you have to give her, given that, plus the low expectations, and the fact that she was
sexist.
No, they weren't. The expectations weren't low because she was sexist. The expectations were low. The expectations were low because she performed pitifully.
Right.
In those earlier interviews.
Correct. Yes.
That was not
true.
why.
I stand corrected.
That was not why.
You're right.
There were low expectations because she performed pitifully in the Katie Couric and in the Charlie Gibson interviews.
For which she was unrehearsed and unprepared.
Well, she may have been prepared, but you know, it's still hard. How do you can't prepare for every possible question. I think the most interesting was, what magazines do you read? Or what newspapers do you read? I read them all. Well, can you give us an example? I read them all.
She could have said Moose Times or something.
Let me tell you what it is about Sarah.
Speaking of which, you had that the Moose thing.
Well, we'll get to it. This is.
You got to see this in a bit, folks. This is amazing.
This is a back scratcher from historic Wasilla. Okay?
He's not kidding. Look at this, folks.
Historic Wasilla.
Historic Wasilla.
And I'm very happy to have this, because I think notwithstanding Governor, and the reason I'm keeping this as a conversation piece in my room until the election's over, is Notwithstanding Governor Palin's claim to be a reformer, when you look at her real career, it's all you scratch my back, I scratch your back. Just like every other politician game show host we've ever had. And it really, really works. So,
Can I try that?
yeah, sure. You know, you can have it after the election,
Oh,
too.
this is neat, folks. It's,
So,
yeah, it does work. Wow.
it really works. It's good. And I will assure you, knowing the positions of Governor Palin, that moose were harmed in the creation of this. So, actually, I don't know that. It could have been roadkill for all we know. I don't know. In any event,
We know she can take down this.
here's the thing. Here's the thing with Sarah Palin. They talk about her projection of sincerity. That's not what I got. What I got was game show host sincerity. I got that, hey, how's it going? Hey. It's just a variant on what politicians do. She's very charming and good at it, but she's basically a game show host. Here's the other thing.
What does that say for politics, though?
Well, we've been
where
saying-
we've allowed politics to go.
We live in California. Look who the governor is, for God's sake, Zinni. We have an action figure as governor. And by the way,
Right.
you know,
We need 7 billion.
right. So here's the thing with Sarah Palin. I think folks are seriously misjudging what the deficit there is. People are concerned about her in terms of her intelligence. She is very, very intelligent.
Yeah.
Is she learned? No.
No.
Is she intelligent? Yes. Can someone who's not learned but intelligent learn and perform appropriately in a tough job? Yes.
She's a quick study.
But will she? No. Here's why. What I see in Sarah Palin is the kid who's lazy and doesn't want to do, I don't mean lazy like she's not working, but intellectually lazy, doesn't want to learn the material, and so through charm and smarts
Yep.
can talk and BS their way all around it and not actually learn anything because they waste. It's like the employees. And
Sure,
example.
okay, yeah,
It's
sure.
like the employee who spends time trying to figure out how not to work their job because somehow they're getting over on the employer. And you say, if you took that time and energy and just did the job, everybody would be happy.
Right.
What scares me now, that didn't scare me before this debate, what frightens me about Sarah Palin as president is the type of person who would rather expend their intelligence and energy figuring out how not to learn
Right.
the basics rather than just take. If Sarah Palin were of a different character with that intelligence and charm, which is undeniable, she would learn the material and maybe fashion really good judgments. But I think what she's about is what
Be a
might
truly good politician.
Yeah, what she's about in somewhere in her is she doesn't want to learn it. She would rather just get over. She's a scammer. She's a game show host scam
But
artist.
you realize it also means, in my
Very
opinion,
charming.
It also means that
And smart.
she doesn't know why she's a conservative. Because on 4 occasions she's agreed with Senator Obama's policies unknowingly.
That's right. Well,
But she doesn't seem to, she says she's a conservative, but she doesn't really, I would bet, understand what it means to be a conservative intellectually.
Well-
She hasn't studied it.
well, maybe she does, maybe she doesn't. I'm not sure that when you see someone who has such little regard for truth or history,
Right.
can a lack of regard for principle be far behind? If you don't have knowledge of history, and you don't have, and more
Are
importantly,
you saying she has no morals?
no, I'm not saying that. She may have very fine morals in her personal context. I think that
Can you be unprincipled and moral?
unprincipled and moral, it depends on what universe you're talking about here. Let me give you an example.
Okay, okay.
All right?
All right.
You may, in your family moral universe, I mean, let's give her some credit. I think there was a lot of sexism at the introduction of her to the country.
Yes.
On both sides, both by McCain and by the Democrats. And I'm only feeling about our side, the Democrats.
Note that I always refer to her as Governor Palin. I never referred to her as that woman.
No, of course. I think that the idea that people were complaining that she had that the fact that she had a Down syndrome child was somehow implicated in her positions regarding choice. at least you have to give her and her husband credit for living within their principles. That they chose, they felt that aborting the pregnancy was wrong, and notwithstanding how difficult it would be given her job, they chose to take the child and love the child.
Right.
I have though I disagree with her position that she should be allowed to make that choice, but some other woman shouldn't be allowed to make a different choice.
It's contradictory.
It depends on whether you believe in choice. She clearly does not. She believes in a choice. That's not believing in choice.
Right.
To say that I believe in choice as long as it's the one I chose and how I weighed my moral compass here about these questions is clearly the mark of someone who leans toward a more theocratic sense of how public society should play itself out. But I think to criticize her for having made that choice was wrong, and not wise politically and not sound philosophically. The fact that she may herself in how she would treat others making a choice demonstrate inconsistency doesn't reflect on how she made the choice and sacrifices personally. So I'm not saying she's not moral. She clearly has religious beliefs that she is, as best as she can, living to in terms of what we see. Who really ever knows what goes on with people privately? And that's part of why there should be a separate private sphere. But I hear what you're saying, that lots of times her answers, we're going to stop these Wall Street people from doing these things, and in the same answer, we don't need the government to regulate.
Right. Exactly.
Very clearly, this is not someone who has given a lot of deep thought,
right,
or even shallow thought to these issues. Clearly, she's very reactive.
What bothers me is that the American people that I've talked to, and I get a lot of connections with people like you out there, some of you, they don't put that together either. And that's what's so frightening to me.
I totally disagree with that. I think that one of the problems...
We're in the Bay Area. We do that.
No. But see...
All right, okay.
Elitism.
Elitism. I am an elitist.
Elitism. I lived in the Midwest.
Okay.
And so did you.
Yes,
you
I'm
did
from
too.
Chicago.
Yeah. No, Chicago's like to take New York and move it to the Midwest.
Yeah, I'm proud of that.
I'm not saying you shouldn't be proud of it. I wouldn't call it the Midwest the way, say, St. Louis is the Midwest.
I grant it.
Okay.
Right.
So,
we have better teams.
So, right now. So what I'm saying is that there's a premise that those folks in the Midwest aren't going to be able to see through this game show approach, this shallowness, the ducking of the questions. There are some people who will not be able to see through it. They're here in the Bay Area just like they are in the Midwest. I think my experience in the Midwest was that people were very, very intuitive and sound about BS. And what I thought about Sarah Palin last night was she did a good job in terms of not melting down, of staunching the bleeding.
Which I never expected her to melt down.
I didn't either. But she staunched the bleeding. She was able once again to energize. I think she was able to energize the people who already liked her, so they don't feel like the world is ending for them tomorrow. That the election is over, and that was important. But I think you saw the beginnings. I have a sense that if we were so unfortunate to have somebody of that quality as vice president, I think the public would very soon get tired of that game show pattern.
John.
Yes. Are we done with Governor Palin now?
Yes.
Thank you.
Now, the debate.
I can't believe we spend this much time on her. It's not that important.
But where do we go from here? The debate is over. We have debate Tuesday. Where do we go next in the campaign?
I don't think we're going anywhere. I think my personal opinion is unless there is some exogenous shock to the system, a major gaffe by Obama.
What could that be?
I don't know. I'm just saying.
Sure.
Some October surprise of some sort.
Sure.
Absent that, I would think it almost, I wouldn't say it's impossible, but I think it's going to be almost impossible for John McCain to win this election at this point. And that's because the fact of the matter is gasoline costs twice what it did just a little while ago. People are losing their jobs.
Credit crunch.
People are freaked out about the credit crunch. For the first time in most of our lifetimes, people are concerned that the money won't be at the ATM
right.
when they get there. And no matter what John McCain tries to do, the reality is the undecided voters are very often some of the most considered voters. And it's very hard to win if you're in the party that created this disaster, both internationally in terms of America's prestige and its foreign policy position, and in terms of our own economy. This is not like the election in 1988, in which you had George Bush, who should have lost. Traditionally, the vice president after a two-term president loses, should have lost, but was able to beat Michael Dukakis because at the time, notwithstanding the stock market plunge in late '87, you were basically in peace and prosperity.
Right.
And so he could argue, remember, we're on the right track, stay the course, 1,000 points alike. He could do that.
Right.
John McCain has a very difficult contortion to perform, which is to pretend he has nothing to do with George Bush while simultaneously voting for the bailout
Yep.
and supporting the Iraq policy.
Right.
How he can cut
And
the
pushing for the
baloney,
surge.
how he can cut the baloney that thin, if he can do it, people will look back and say, wow, that was just masterful. His performance in the past 2 weeks regarding the economic crisis, putting aside whether it's right, wrong, indifferent from a substantive perspective, his performance was abysmal. He scared people,
Sure did. Sure did.
and having named Palin, he took out the issue of Obama's inexperience. Alleged inexperience. What he did was he changed it from a sword for the McCain campaign into use only as a shield against criticism of Palin.
And
So
not even a backstabber.
no, it's a shield. It became a shield, not a sword.
Right.
He gave that away. Now, in light of how badly Palin performed in those interviews and the doubts about Palin, and given his performance around the economy, it now becomes clear, as Obama said at the convention, if John McCain wants to have a debate about who has the character to serve as and the temperament to serve as commander-in-chief, I'm ready to have that debate.
That's right.
Everybody at the time said, oh, he's putting down a marker about McCain's legendary temper. What it seems was, whether or not Obama intended it as a marker on the temper question, it certainly has become an issue in terms of McCain's stability and steadiness for being in the top job.
Let's take this out. Prediction for Tuesday.
Sure.
We got Obama again against Clinton. Obama against McCain. It's been a long day, folks. How's it coming out?
Well, I think it's going to be a draw.
Even with the economy being the issue?
It's a draw.
Fascinating.
It's a draw.
Can we come back to you and talk some more about
Sure,
this?
love to.
Thanks, Tom.
Nice seeing you.
got
Take
it.
care.
Thank you. Hey, thanks, folks.
Thank you.